Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Uncanny X-Men number 368, cover dated May 1999. The cover is by Adam Kubert with colors by Liquid, and I do like this cover. I think it is a good design. I like the choice by Adam Kubert, a choice he often makes to leave the background white because that actually helps the cover leap off the shelves for the eye-catching attention of potential buyers and readers. And of course, the rivalry here between Wolverine and Magneto goes all the way back to issue 25 of Adjectiveless X-Men when Magneto pulled the adamantium from Wolverine's body. He still is minus his adamantium. We can see the bone claws there very clearly in Adam Kubert's delineation. I like the spotting of blacks on this cover as well. The choice to have Wolverine's face mostly in silhouette and shadow. It is a little comical, the detail that his eyes are glowing there with bloodlust. And one criticism I have is that Magneto's helmet here is a little bit... it throws me somewhat when I pay attention to the fact that Wolverine has raked it there across the top. And you can see Magneto's grey hair immediately beneath the tear, and it makes it look like the helmet rather is wafer thin rather than a proper metal protective helmet. Okay, so putting that aside, we do have a cover caption. The war is over, but payback has just begun because the Magneto War is over. With Magneto installed as the head of state of the African island of Genosha, which was quite the twist at the end of Adjectiveless X-Men 67. Now let's open this one up to the first page. We have a sequence of 6 panels here. This is a favored layout by Adam Kubert. Adam Kubert is on art here. We'll get the full credits in due course. So the setting is Genosha. It is the capital of Genosha, Hammer Bay, and we have the Citadel there in the background, and Wolverine is sneaking his way to the Citadel in order to assassinate Magneto. So we have his first-person narration here, his monologue, his inner monologue, which of course is a common device when it comes to Wolverine, going all the way back to Claremont's writing of the character, and in particular the miniseries that was co-plotted and drawn by Frank Miller. So he spots the Citadel. There's the Citadel. Looks just the same since the last time that Wolverine was in Genosha, which of course was Extinction Agenda. And he continues and thinks to himself, but I know it ain't the same. Nothing's the same. Civil War don't compare to the new problem, sitting fat and happy in that Citadel. Yeah, he's in there. So we get a couple of silent panels as Wolverine leaps over the barbed wire fence. And yeah, this is an interesting little sequence. He grabs the barbed wire and then he somersaults over, so we get a DeLuca effect there, also breaking the panel border. You can see that Adam Kubert is sticking with the 6-panel grid here for the course of these opening pages, which makes it cinematic in a way, even though like the obvious device for cinematic storytelling layout would be all horizontal panels, but this works too in my opinion. So Wolverine drops to the ground on the other side of the fence. He's making his way towards the presidential palace or mansion. That fence was electrified, danger high voltage, so he managed to avoid being electrocuted, it would seem. And he runs along the pathway there. There's some guard dogs coming towards him, and this surprised me. So he pops his claws. Silent guard dogs, they die a silent death. He kills them, and that struck me as a little bit strange for Wolverine. Usually you'd expect Wolverine to communicate with the dogs using his charisma, his bestial charisma, because he's done that in the past and avoided killing dogs, but he kills these ones. And maybe it's just an insight into the fact that he is in a rage, determined to get payback on Magneto. But also there's something else coming, which will shed another light on his seeming casual killing of the dogs. So he scales the walls here, and in his first person monologue, he's thinking, what's happening here? He's thinking, I may be the only one who still cares enough about Professor X's dream to be here, but I'm used to having to go it alone. So I like the little detail that we can just see his cowl or face mask there outside the window as these acolytes are playing poker and smoking and drinking. That's amusing. And then he's using his scent there into the bedroom with the open door, just making sure that this is it. He's in here. I don't have to smell him. He's dead, so the helmet is off there. And this is Magneto's bed. And his claws are popped, schlicked. There we have the sound effect. And then there's a problem. So we'll see what the problem is when we turn the page. But this reminds me of Uncanny X-Men 150, where Storm also had an opportunity or was in a room with a sleeping Magneto and had to make a choice in terms of whether she would kill him or not. And Wolverine here, he's pretty determined in respect of what he's intending to do. Let's turn the page. We get a double page spread. And Magneto is up and awake and not in bed and in costume. And he catches Wolverine and surrounds him and wraps him up with all of this metallic furniture, fixtures and fittings. So the title of the story is Mansions in Heaven, which is a biblical reference, of course. One of Jesus' sayings about how he was going to prepare mansions in heaven for the faithful. Let's put it that way. So there's a kind of an ironic use of that particular term. The creative team down here, Alan Davis and Adam Kubert, credited with story and art. So Davis is plotting this. He is the chief creative now on both X-Men titles, Uncanny X-Men and Adjectiveless X-Men. And his stories are bopping back and forth between the two titles. Adam Kubert on the pencils, of course, 22 pages of story and art in this issue. And interestingly, look who's joining the team here, Joe Casey replacing Fabian Nicieza as scripter. So how will Joe Casey do in terms of his scripting duties? Very well, is my opinion, because I've already gone through this issue in advance of making this video review and commentary. Tim Townsend on inks throughout this issue, so really providing sharp and slick ink line to Adam Kubert's pencils, a good combination in my opinion, and Liquid on the digital colors, Richard Starkings and Comic Craft on the digital letters. So Magneto here enraged, he's hovering here above the ground, and Wolverine's thinking to himself, I'm trapped, can't move a muscle, I don't care about anything, I just want to kill, nothing else matters. And then somebody off panel says, your hypersenses mean nothing if you cannot predict the security systems. And it's Storm. So what's she doing there? Aurora, says Wolverine. Don't assume you're welcome here. And look at this. She's up there in the monitoring control center of the Danger Room. This was all a Danger Room sequence. And that sheds retrospectively light on Wolverine killing those dogs. They weren't real in the first place. And he knew that. I'm busy and I don't want to see anybody except that maniac in front of me, he says. And Storm tells him, this is insane, Wolverine. You've been at this for days. Endless variations on the same Danger Room scenario. Infiltration of the Genoshan capital. Attempted assassination of its new ruler, Magneto. I changed the parameters of the sim, she means simulation, to illustrate a point. End program. So Wolverine drops to the ground onto his back, freed from the simulation of all of that metallic stuff. Let's get past the advertisement for Avengers Forever here. I do have that in my collection as well. Anybody interested in me reviewing that, let me know in the comment section. And so there he is sitting on the floor. I like the little kind of acting detail of the way that he's holding the back of his neck there. He looks kind of forlorn in that posture. And Storm says to him, have you killed him yet? A few times, says Wolverine. And she replies, and what exactly have you accomplished in doing so? Magneto is still in power. We are your friends. The X-Men share a common ideal that we are constantly struggling to achieve. But what your actions? And Wolverine cuts across her and says, save the speeches, princess. I'm not in the mood. If the rest of you ain't using this place to jump through Charlie's hoops, I thought I'd get a little exercise. You got a problem with that? So Storm gets the fact that there's no talking to Wolverine when he's in this mood, and she heads away. He's silent. I like the decision here by Joe Casey to leave a silent panel. And then Wolverine looks around. Row, he says he's more contrite. She's gone. That figures. And then what's he going to do? Is he going to leave the danger room? No. He's determined. He's obsessed. Voice code identification activate. Start up the sim again and increase the random probability factor by 200%. So the danger room obliges Meep. I like that little sound effect there. And the scene switches to the United Nations building in Manhattan. Outside, we've got protesters there, no mutant nations. And inside, we've got Professor X. And he's in an ordinary wheelchair because he is masquerading as an ordinary human being. It is still unknown in the Marvel Universe, at least by the public, that he himself is a mutant. And there's a secretary there, and she greets him. She knows him. And he's come to meet somebody who is sitting now in his office with his old function at the UN. The secretary there says, I can imagine how strange this must seem. Dr. Huxley's new responsibilities here turned out to encompass your old job as consultant on genetic mutation. It's been a bit of an adjustment. We're all just getting used to her being here. So I like the way it's implied by this woman's speech that none of the other staff at the UN really liked Dr. Alda Huxley. They preferred Professor X. Of course, she's been in Genosha for the past 18 months, says the woman, so she is uniquely qualified to deal with the current crisis. And the professor is fairly laconic. You can see the furrowed brow. Right, he says. Dr. Huxley, the woman says as she opens the door so Professor X can wheel himself in. Professor Charles Xavier to see you. Nice office, he says. And we see we've got a top-down angle here, almost as if we're looking down on the office from a vantage point of CCTV in the corner. You never did too much with it, she retorts to the professor. You were rarely here. By all means, make yourself comfortable. So there's all kinds of stuff going on between the lines of their conversation, and I think it's really well handled by Joe Casey in the dialogue. But what I also like here is the fact that Adam Kubert has done his homework in terms of drawing the UN building. I also like the fact that as we look out this window to the west, we see the Chrysler building. And as we look out to the East River, we see the docks there with a little ship docked as well. This is all really well done, like he is showing us New York City as it is. And I also like the little detail here, looking out the window again, Huxley's office, Professor X's old office of the helicopter up there in the air, because that's another kind of true-to-life detail of New York City. Very often helicopters up in the air with billionaires and big wigs flying over the city, making lots of money. And I like the fact here that Huxley then, we have a silent panel, and then she kind of looks to the side and says here, so, can you tell me what I'm thinking? And she's got a wry smile on her face. So the implication is she knows that he's a mutant, but the professor doesn't acknowledge any of that. I'll be brief, he says. I'm not here to verbally spar with you, but you engineered the deal that put Magneto in a seat of world power. You gave him Genosha, an act that, from where I'm sitting, reeks of complete and total insanity. Magneto is one of the most dangerous and powerful mutants alive. His goal is nothing less than world domination. To believe he'll settle for Genosha is lunacy. What is this game you're playing where the security of the entire planet is now at risk? So is Huxley going to give a straight answer to that question? Of course not. Again, I like the acting here from Adam Kubert in the art. It's really well done as she rests her chin on her linked hands and fingers. As long as we're playing 20 questions, Professor, I've got a few for you. So she's going to answer his question with questions. And of course, that's known as a Jesuitical strategy. So here she goes. What exactly were you doing in the Arctic with Magneto and the X-Men? I'm well aware you've built a reputation for your sensitivity to the mutant issue, but from where I sit, either you were there as a prisoner or as an ally. Care to clear that up for me? And The professor says nothing in response. I didn't think so. This has been truly fascinating. She looks at her papers, puts her hand up. Again, the body language is so good. Puts her hand up. That gesture means it's time to go. But if you'll excuse me, I need to prepare for a return flight to Genosha. And the professor leaves. This isn't over. I agree, she says. Have a nice day. So well done by Joe Casey. Really, really excellent dialogue there. Like a tense conversation with lots of things going on between the lines. And then we switch to a craft that is just outside Genoshan airspace, and aboard is Magneto. And he's sitting fairly relaxed in his sort of throne there, and he's watching TV. A news report that is telecast live from outside the UN building. And so there's a news reporter speaking to some of those protesters. Ferris is concerned about Magneto's wounds after the battle with the X-Men and Astra. And he says, silence. He's intent on the news report. So this guy here, Alan Leto, Manhattan accountant, he says, why am I here? Why am I picketing? Because somebody has to stand up and say how wrong this is. We're not supposed to give in to terrorist demands. This isn't the first time that freak has held the world hostage, but I never expected anything like this to come of it. I mean, he turns the lights out all over the world, and the UN grants him a presidency. It was bad enough over there already, wasn't it? Whatever Magneto was planning to do, it worked. The most powerful mutant on the planet is now a world leader. So Magneto here, he's also resting his hand on his linked fingers there. And the man continues. Interesting, the kind of like grotesque caricature of the guy, including that hairy wart on his face as well. Interesting choice by Kubert, because the ugliness of the man, it kind of loses the sympathy of the reader, and I wonder what the implication is. Magneto here is gesturing towards his helmet, then he pulls his hand away from it, clenches his fist. Interesting, like what's going on as he's listening to the guy. The guy continues and says, now I may just be a regular human accountant, but I keep up with global politics. I pay my taxes, I cast my vote every year. I don't even feel safe in my own country anymore, knowing there's a mutant terrorist nation across the ocean. I can't sleep at night. That's ridiculous. Like, have a drink, Mr. Accountant. But anyway, he continues and says, as he pushes his face in the camera, obviously the UN doesn't get it. He's got all the power he needs now. This is exactly why the government needs to do something about mutants. Giving Genosha to Magneto is like giving Germany back to, and he was about to say Hitler, and before he got to the second syllable, Magneto clenches his fist and uses his power to crash his helmet right into that TV screen where it's burning inside it. They never will understand Ferris, he says. Look how hunched his shoulders are there. And Ferris replies, forgive my melodrama, sire, but you will make them understand. Soon they will all know the power you possess. And I really like this upshot here, this 3/4 profile upshot of Magneto, and the lighting too, the spotting of blacks. It's really well done. Yes, of course they will, he says. They say no man is an island. We shall see. And that's very interesting from Joe Casey, because he's quoting John Donne there. But of course, Magneto is off to be the ruler of an island nation. I like that. That's clever scripting from Joe Casey. And I like the transition here from Adam Kubert as well. This visual transition from Magneto to Rogue. And of course, we're reminded of the fact that they once upon a time had an affair, a fling, in the Savage Land in issues 274, 275 of Uncanny X-Men. The lady's name is Rogue. So she's out here in the hills above the mansion, sitting on a tree stump, probably a tree that Colossus cut down. He was always out chopping trees on the professor's land. And interesting body language as well. We've got the hunched shoulder again, and the way that she's holding her hands together beneath her knees. I think it's very well done by Kubert. Also, you can see it's a windy day, and it will remain a windy day as well for the rest of the issue when the X-Men are outside on the grounds of the mansion. And she's thinking about Joseph. Someone kissed her. That was on Christmas Eve. His name was Joseph. He allowed her to experience that kiss. by momentarily suspending her powers. He was the only one who could do that, and now he's dead. She's not the only one aware of Joseph's singular place in her heart, because here's Gambit. He's looking out the window, but it's got to be a window. If he can see her, which window should it be? One of these ones? But he's down on the lower floor. It doesn't make sense. He shouldn't be able to see her at all. So maybe he's just looking out on the driveway and thinking about her. Gambit mooning over Rogue. Will they, won't they ever get together? It's never ending. And then in the reflection we see, as it turns out, it's Storm, of course. Psylocke. She's recognizable now by that Crimson Dawn tattoo. And who's this with the pointy ear, do you imagine? Well, we'll see when we turn the page. Any guesses? Well, it'll turn out to be Nightcrawler. So here we have the X-Men, and they are in they're in suits and formal wear, mostly black, because they're gathered for a how will I put it, like a memorial service. That's the best way to put it. So big panel here with all of the X-Men, including the originals. And Storm says, so that is essentially it, my friends. We were there at the epicenter of Magneto's mad scheme to disrupt the Earth's electromagnetic field, a scheme that, as you no doubt are aware, has succeeded. Had Joseph not been there, things would have turned out much, much worse than they did, although at times it's difficult to see how. So I wondered in reviews of the Magneto War where the original X-Men were. Where were Cyclops, Jean and the others? So Jean explains, Scott and I, after a little pause, were in Alaska when the lights went out. And Alaska's not too far away from the North Pole. We left home as soon as the news broke, but it was already too late. And now Magneto, I don't know, I think it's just a contrivance that they never made it to the North Pole. They should have been there, in my opinion, but anywho. And I'm guessing that this is supposed to be the Beast, I think. And he says, set up in Genosha, Jean. This can't be real. And then this, as it turns out, have a look at this character here, and it will turn out in the dialogue that is supposed to be Iceman. Unbelievable. But anyway, shouldn't we be over there staging some kind of coup or something? Sabra. And this is Sabra here. I wouldn't Iceman. So this is supposed to be Iceman. He looks like an elf. But anyway, first things first. Were you to act now, the world would be watching. This is the most dangerous time. And then Storm has a lot of thoughts about the X-Men and Joseph being genetically engineered clone, and also thinking Charles's original class, Scott and Jean, Warren, Bobby, Hank, their first official mission as X-Men was to confront Magneto. What must they be thinking? Were their sacrifices made in vain? Nevertheless, we are all here, X-Men and friends alike. So where is Warren? It's unclear. Like, this is Scott, this is Jean, this is supposed to be Psylocke, Nightcrawler, Storm, Colossus, of course, Sabra, Marrow, Cannonball, Maggot. There's the Beast. There he is there. So he was kind of hidden behind that thought balloon. So is this supposed to be... Is something gone wrong here? And this was supposed to be Iceman, and I don't know then who this was supposed to be. But something's gone wrong there anyway in terms of a clear rendering of Warren and Bobby. But in any case, back into the story. Marrow, of course, the troublesome teenager. Come on, let's get this over with. These clothes itch. And Nightcrawler tells her, Marrow, be calm. We will wait for Professor Xavier. Only then can we proceed. And Storm says, we are awaiting one other, Kurt. And of course, that's Wolverine, that's Logan. So he's back in another simulation in the Danger Room. Again, Kubert goes back to the layout from the opening pages for the simulation. I like that because it's kind of like a visual reminder for us readers of the space he's in. And who pops out from a rooftop except for Kitty Pryde? And Wolverine says, get out of here, Kitty. And she says to him with a long face, literally long face, how long can you keep this up? You haven't slept. You look terrible. And he replies, don't hold back. How do you really feel? No more jokes, Logan. She says, the professor wants everyone up at the mansion house. We need to stick together through this. With everything that's happening, this is about more than a funeral. This is about us, all of us. So what's the deal? So we got a close-up here on Wolverine's face. on his scrunched and furrowed brow. The deal is, I ain't a hypocrite. I never much liked him when he was alive. I ain't gonna pretend I did now that he ain't. The rest of you can have your little memorial. I'm taking out his twin. So Logan jumps off. He's not going to Joseph's memorial service. And then Kubert switches to horizontal panel layouts because we're outside now. We're on the grounds of the mansion. We're at the chapel. So the last time that we've seen this space was in Uncanny X-Men 304, which was Illyana's funeral, which was interrupted, of course, infamously by Magneto, returned Magneto, when Colossus joined him and the Acolytes in Avalon. But there's no reference to that in any of this dialogue. And Kitty arrives with the news, and she was at that funeral, of course, in 304. He's not coming, she says. So the professor's disappointed. Blast, he says quietly. Very well, we'll do this without him. My friends, far too often we've come together to grieve. These are never happy reunions. And in this case, when I have been gone for what seemed like an eternity, the joy I feel in seeing you once again is tempered by the weight of this occasion. So he goes on and on about being a teacher, not knowing the answer to everything, and he decides that he's going to share with them something valuable, something precious. Open your minds to me, he says. Like that close-up there on the side of his face, the cheek, as well as he closes his eyes in concentration. See what I meant about the wind? It's still blowing. You can see the leaves blowing through the air too. And then we get a double-page spread. And we've got an image of Joseph as he made his ultimate sacrifice. And so, of course, he's got his hands out there like Christ on the cross. So the kind of like the symbolism is on the nose. But what's not on the nose is Joseph's genitalia. So they're removed. We don't get to see them tastefully. And the professor has a long speech here. And basically it comes down to this. In his final moments in the Arctic, Joseph finally stared down his mirror image. And he did not blink. In fact, he triumphed. And at that crucial moment, I peered inside his mind. My goal was to help him along. Turns out he didn't need it. But what you feel now is what he felt then. What I know now, we shall all know. So I really like the Dutch angle here from Kubert. I like the eyeballed perspective as well. The little reminder there of the original 5 X-Men 2. And the kind of circle panels where we're looking at specific characters like Scott and Jean, Kitty and Nightcrawler. You know, it's always interesting to see who's stood beside whom. Colossus and Storm there. And of course, like I said, Colossus at the last time, he was there for his sister's funeral and joined Magneto. So we don't get his thoughts, but he surely has some. And this is an interesting choice as well. Wolverine, who said he wasn't interested in going to the memorial service, didn't like Joseph. He says, hold it, pause the program. He's listening in to the professor's telepathic communication. For all of us who will carry on in his stead, a final gift to affirm a sacrifice not made in vain. Joseph's short life was proof that the X-Men make a difference. Enemies can become allies. Past sins can be overcome and redemption found. And with hope and courage, what once seemed impossible is within our reach. So while Joseph may be gone, the dream he died for lives on. That's an interesting angle there, upshot on Professor X. And then the scene switches to Brazil and the nun who found Joseph and nursed him back to health. And she is Sister Maria. And she also is included in the professor's gift there. So she twigs to the fact that Joseph is dead. And the little orphan asks her, why does she cry? She says she's fine, let's finish her work here. This is the tractor that Joseph repaired for them. So now they can work the land there, bring in the harvest of, I don't know, pomegranates, apples, whatever. And Wolverine here, he's killed Magneto in the simulation. His costume's all ripped up. And the X-Men have come in to watch him. That's got to be embarrassing. And it's Jean now is going to try and reach out to Logan. She says, first Alex goes missing, now this. We're all angry about the outcome of Magneto's ultimatum. Sorry, this is Cyclops speaking, but this isn't the answer. And Wolverine says, trust me, Psych, it's the only answer. So the gang's all here, eh? What now? A flamin' wake? Take it somewhere else, Chuck? So we've seen this angry Wolverine before. Tears off his mask. I like that. That's well drawn by Kubert. Unless you're back to exert more of that special kind of pressure, because the Professor knocked him out when Wolverine was going to attack Magneto in the Arctic. And the Professor explains, what I did to you in the Arctic, he pauses, I had to do. In time you may understand that, but for now understand this. I cannot condone this course of action that you persist in. Wolverine sticks his finger out at the Professor accusingly, and that's what it's all about, ain't it, Chuck? What you condone. Well, I got my own point of view on this situation. Let's turn the page here. And Kubert switches to horizontal panels. So we see Wolverine down on his hunkers, apart from the X-Men. They're on the other side of the room. The Professor here is leaning forward as well. So, we've got a sense of aggression and assertiveness. And Wolverine continues, and if we don't see eye to eye, then I guess we got a problem. You people are like a broken record. How many times do we turn the other cheek before realizing it's time to play by his rules? Nightcrawler steps in as peacemaker or tries to mind Freund. Don't do this. Already done. Fuzzy elf, I think he was about to say. And then something totally weird happens, and totally Alan Davis. Like the kind of thing that would happen during his Excalibur run. So somebody arrives in the midst of Kirby Crackle and says, I'm arrived. Thank Bazal. So everybody is absolutely stunned. And then there's Kirby Crackle around them. Only tender moments to gather our champions. Turn the page. We're going to get a double page spread. This is wild. Like, this came out of nowhere. And return. And then the character says, oh, Nag, I am miscalculated. Tryon, save us. And so there's some kind of battle happening here between these strange alien creatures and these strange surfers that are wearing kind of goofy scarves. Where on earth is this taking place? And these weird goldfish as well. But great colouring on the goldfish by Liquid. And everybody's completely baffled. And Storm says, Professor, I'm attuned to the planet's weather patterns. And the Professor interrupts and says, I know, Storm. As impossible as it seems, we're not on Earth anymore. So, Alan Davis bringing that brand of Excalibur weirdness to his run on Uncanny X-Men and X-Men. And I think that this is really interesting. It's altogether much more interesting than anything that happened previously in the Segal and Joe Kelly era. And of course, there was a lot of editorial interference in that era into the plans of those two writers, which mitigates any criticism of them. But like, this is pure Alan Davis, and he's allowed to do it, and the ex-editors wisely are letting him do it. So I'm intrigued. Interesting visual designs, as I was saying, from Kubert, like these weird spheres with these three strange like tentacles, kind of obscene looking. Really weird and intriguing ending. And then usually I say that the letters page is nothing interesting, but actually there's two interesting letters here, this one, and they get some interesting replies. But this letter is unbelievable. The correspondent says, I had to write to you after issue 367. The Cerebro storyline is great. I don't know, James Knowles, I think that you need your head examined if you think the Cerebro storyline was great. But like I said, the other couple of letters are somewhat interesting, and they're worth a read if you're looking at this in high definition. Next issue, the story continues in Adjectiveless X-Men 88, then be here in 30 for the mind-boggling conclusion. So like I said earlier, Alan Davis bopping back and forth in terms of his plotting between the two X-Men titles. And I think it's a good decision. At the time, and definitely Davis's run is proving more interesting. There's ideas in it that editorial is allowing into it that makes it more interesting than the year before his run, and more interesting than anything since Lobdell left, I would say. So there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed my review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 368. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.